Hello and welcome. I am Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching Namaste World, your daily window into the biggest stories shaping India and the world. We begin in South Asia, where Pakistan pushes JF-17 fighter jets globally but fails to secure even one export deal. Indian Navy weighs Israeli icebreaker cruise missiles to turn US-made Seahawk helicopters into long-range ship killers. In Europe, Germany prepares to war risk, plans Europe's strongest army as fears grow over Russia and NATO. In South Asia, from speeches to symbols, Pakistan Army under General Asim Munir embraces religion as ideology grows stronger. But the biggest news of the day, US President Donald Trump declines emergency G7 meet as Greenland tensions rise and US-Europe differences deepen. All that and more. Global flashpoints, power plays and the stories that matter coming up in this edition of Namaste World. So stay tuned. US President Donald Trump has declined an invitation to attend an emergency G7 meeting proposed by French President Emmanuel Macron as tensions rise over Washington's interest in acquiring Greenland. Speaking at a White House briefing to mark 1 year of his second term, President Donald Trump said he would not participate, adding that he believed Mr. Macron's leadership role in his own country is coming to an end. The French president had suggested a Paris G7 gathering following the World Economic Forum in Davos, with discussions planned on Ukraine, Denmark, Syria, and Russia. Mr. Trump noted that he already has key meetings scheduled in Davos, including talks with those directly involved in Greenland matter, and sharply criticized NATO, claiming it treats the United States unfairly. Meanwhile, President Trump had to return to Joint Base Andrews after his Air Force One developed an electrical snag during the journey to Davos. Later, he boarded another aircraft to continue his journey to Switzerland, where he is expected to address the World Economic Forum in Davos. Pakistan's military is loudly promoting its JF-17 fighter jet as affordable and combat tested. Officials claim strong international interest, but not a single export deal has been signed so far. With talks failing and doubts growing, is Pakistan's fighter jet push more hype than reality? Here is a report by Farhan Khan.
Pakistan's military leadership has been making a lot of noise about its homegrown fighter jet, the JF-17 Thunder. It is being pitched as combat-tested, affordable, and in global demand. But strip away the headlines and the reality is far more awkward. Despite months of publicity and claims of international interest, Pakistan has not secured a single confirmed export order of the JF-17. According to a Reuters report, Islamabad has held talks with at least 13 countries on selling JF-17 fighter jets, drones, and training aircraft. These include Bangladesh, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Sudan, and Libya's Eastern Administration. But none of these discussions have turned into signed contracts. In fact, Pakistan's own Defence Production Minister, Raza Hayat Harraj, has publicly admitted that the talks may fail. He said negotiations could fall through due to international pressures and stressed that interest does not mean commitment. That admission alone punctures the official narrative of booming defense exports. So, what's holding buyers back? Pakistan markets the JF-17 as a low-cost fighter priced between $30 and $40 million, cheaper than Western alternatives. Officials also highlight its use during last year's India-Pakistan air clash to claim a combat-tested tag. But defense analysts are not convinced. The JF-17 lacks advanced avionics, cutting-edge sensors, and seamless weapons integration that modern air forces demand. Just as important, buyers worry about long-term maintenance, spare parts, training ecosystems, and sanctions exposure. Areas where Pakistan struggles to offer credible guarantees. There's also the China factor. Since the JF-17 is jointly developed with Beijing, any export deal requires Chinese approval. That adds another layer of geopolitical uncertainty for potential buyers. Then, there's the question of who Pakistan is actually selling to. Several countries mentioned in talks face political instability, UN arms restriction, or weak finances. Analysts at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute have warned that sales to places like Sudan or Libya would be extremely problematic under international law. More telling is how Pakistan is using the jet. Instead of selling it purely as a commercial product, Islamabad has reportedly floated proposals to offer JF-17s in exchange for debt relief or loan rollovers. In discussions with Saudi Arabia, fighter jets were pitched as part of loan-to-arms swap ideas. That signals desperation. Pakistan's economy remains under severe stress, dependent on bailouts and emergency funding. Arms exports are being used as a financial shortcut rather than the result of genuine global demand. Even analysts sympathetic to Pakistan's defense industry say relevance does not equal reliability. Being talked about is not the same as being trusted. In the end, the numbers speak for themselves. No buyers, no signed contracts, and a defense production minister openly conceding failure is possible. For all the hype around combat-tested jets, Pakistan's real struggle is credibility, economic, diplomatic, and industrial. And that is a battle no fighter aircraft can win. With Farhan Khan, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
What if a naval helicopter could hit enemy warships from hundreds of kilometers away without entering hostile air defense? The Indian Navy is now studying exactly that option with Israel's Icebreaker cruise missiles. Could this weapon turn Seahawk helicopters into powerful ship killers? Here is a report by Jyoti Shukla.
What if one missile could turn an ordinary naval helicopter into a long-range ship killer without ever entering enemy air defenses? That's exactly what the Indian Navy is now evaluating, as Rafael's Ice Breaker cruise missile enters the spotlight. After the Indian Air Force recently approved the acquisition of the Israeli-made Icebreaker, naval planners have begun assessing whether the missile can be deployed on the Navy's MH-60R Romeo Seahawk helicopters, a move that could dramatically expand India's maritime strike capability. When India inducted 24 MH-60R Seahawks from the United States, they came equipped for anti-submarine warfare, armed with Hellfire missiles and Mk-54 lightweight torpedoes. But the Navy chose not to acquire the heavier Naval Strike Missile or NSM, leaving the helicopters without a true long-range anti-ship weapon. That's where the Icebreaker fits in. Weighing roughly 400 kilograms, the Icebreaker falls well within the Seahawk's payload limits, allowing helicopter launch strikes without compromising range or endurance. With a reported reach of up to 300 kilometers, it offers a standoff capability for beyond anything currently carried by India's naval helicopters. Indigenous options exist, but weight is a key constraint. DRDO's naval anti-ship missile medium range weighs over 600 kilograms and is designed for fighter aircraft, making it unsuitable for rotary wing platforms. Even the lighter naval anti-ship missile, short range at around 380 kilograms, offers a range of only about 55 kilometers. The Icebreaker could bridge that gap. Classified as a 5th generation cruise missile, open source data suggests it uses an imaging infrared seeker combined with artificial intelligence for autonomous target recognition. This allows it to distinguish hostile vessels in cluttered maritime environments, even in poor visibility. The missile also incorporates stealth shaping, a sea-skimming flight profile, and resistance to electronic jamming, enabling it to operate in GPS-denied conditions, a critical feature in modern naval warfare. If cleared, the Icebreaker would fundamentally change the Seahawk's role. No longer limited to tracking submarines or scouting the seas, these helicopters could strike enemy ships from hundreds of kilometers away, well outside hostile air defense envelopes. And there's a domestic angle too. Bharat Dynamics Limited has signed an MOU with Rafale to manufacture variants of the Icebreaker in India, aligning the potential induction with the government's Make in India push. For the Indian Navy, This isn't just a new missile, it's a force multiplier, one that could reshape helicopter-based maritime warfare across the Indo-Pacific. With Jyoti Shukla, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
For decades after World War II, Germany avoided military power. But Russia's war in Ukraine and doubts over US support have changed Berlin's thinking. Germany now wants Europe's strongest army since 1945. Why is this shift happening now? And what does it mean for Europe's security? Here is a report by Srijita Sen Majumdar.
For decades after World War II, Germany avoided military power. That changed after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Now, Berlin says it must prepare for a future where war could reach NATO territory. Germany's response is historic. It wants to build Europe's strongest conventional army for the first time since 1945. At the beginning of 2026, German men turning 18 began receiving compulsory questionnaires, assessing their fitness for military service. Enlistment remains voluntary, but a law passed in December 2025 allows the government to reintroduce conscription if recruitment targets are not met. The shift became explicit in May 2025 when Chancellor Friedrich Merz told Parliament that the Bundeswehr needs to become Europe's strongest conventional army. At the time, Germany had about 184,000 active duty troops, an increase of 2,500 since Merz took office. Berlin now plans to expand the force to 260,000 soldiers by 2035, while doubling reservists to 200,000, bringing Germany close to its Cold War era strength. So why now? The most immediate reason is Russia. A December 2025 Politbarometer survey found that 8 out of 10 Germans believe Russian President Vladimir Putin is not serious about pursuing peace in Ukraine. German intelligence warnings suggest Russia could be capable of attacking a NATO country by 2029, a date that has become a reference point in public debate. Germany is responding with money and urgency. In 2026, Berlin committed 108 billion euros to defense, equivalent to 2.5% of GDP, more than double the 48 billion euros it spent in 2021. By 2030, defense spending is expected to rise to 3.5% of the GDP. Moscow has reacted sharply. In December 2025, Russia's ambassador to Germany, Sergei Nechayev, accused Berlin of preparing for a direct military confrontation. German officials reject that claim, arguing the buildup is defensive. But Russia is only part of the story. US President Donald Trump's national security strategy, published in November 2025, openly criticized Europe's political model, deepening fears that Washington may not defend the continent in a crisis. Former US Army Europe commander General Ben Hodges said Germans had realized the US might no longer come to their aid. As a result, support for a stronger European military role has surged. Bundeswehr polling shows backing for a European army rose to 57% in 2025, 10-point jump in 1 year. Germany has the funding, the political will, and a clear sense of threat. The question now is whether it can rebuild its military fast enough before Europe's security clock runs out. With Jyoti Shukla, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
For decades, Pakistan's army mixed Western military traditions and with strict discipline. But under General Asim Munir, religion is moving to the center of military's thinking once again. From speeches to symbols, the shift is clear. Is Pakistan army returning to General Ziaul Haq's era or heading into a more dangerous future? Here is a report by Sharik Saha.
Pakistan's military is undergoing a quiet but profound transformation, and the world is starting to notice. At the center of it is Asim Munir, Pakistan's Chief of Defense Forces, whose speeches and symbolism point to a growing fusion of religion and military power. Munir has openly said Pakistan was created in the name of Islam and must move toward its real purpose. It's a message he reinforced publicly, often quoting Quranic verses at official events and military gatherings. Experts say this is not accidental. They see a clear echo of General Zia-ul-Haq, the former military ruler who pushed the Islamification of Pakistan's armed forces after taking power in 1977. That project, many believe, stalled after Zia's death. Now, under Munir, it appears to be back and accelerating. Even the military's language has changed. Pakistan's army spokesperson now uses religious terms like fitna and khwaji to describe rebel groups, words rooted in 7th century Arabic history. Critics say this reflects an ideological shift linking today's army with the mindset of early Islamic caliphates. Veteran observers argue Munir has gone further than any recent army chief. While past officials embraced Western traditions, Sandhurst training, English cultural norms, even whiskey and music, Munir promotes a very different image: religious discipline, Quranic scholarship, and ideological clarity. A Karachi-based legal expert bluntly puts it, Pervez Musharraf failed to fulfill Zia's vision. Asim Munir may succeed. For India and the wider world, the shift raises serious concerns. A more religiously driven Pakistani army led by an increasingly powerful general could reshape regional security in unpredictable ways. From Zia to Munir, the question now is simple: is Pakistan's military returning to the past or entering a far more dangerous future? With Sharik Shah, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
As we wrap up today's show, here's a quick look at the top stories making waves around the world. A Russian cosmonaut captures breathtaking aurora lights from space during one of the strongest solar storms in decades. Gunmen kidnapped dozens of worshippers from 2 churches in northern Nigeria, increasing pressure on the government over security failure. Spain's military emergency unit helped lift an overturned high-speed train cabin as crew cleared deadly crash wreckage. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Namaste World. From breakthrough in technology and business to political developments and natural disasters. Stay tuned as we bring you the latest updates, key developments and more from New Delhi to New York. See you again tomorrow, same time, right here on Namaste World.